Now, there are many who describe the second Trump administration as divisive. But when it comes to US news media outlets, President Trump and his people appear to be bringing warring stations like CNN and Fox News together. Major American networks have all signed a letter opposing new press policies from the Pentagon.
Will you consider removing restrictions on the press that report at the Pentagon? And have you spoken to Secretary Hayes about this?
I have, yeah. Well, he's finding, I think I can speak for him, I'll let him speak for himself, but I think he finds the press to be very disruptive in terms of world peace and maybe security for our nation. Press is very dishonest. Not you, but the press is very dishonest. You have something to say, Pete?
Well, I very much appreciate the question because it was interesting to watch. We had a chance to go along on the historic trip of Middle East peace, which our generation of veterans never dreamed would be possible. So you would think that the Pentagon press corps of all press corps would be front and center across the board on wanting to give credit to the president for forging this kind of peace, and instead what they want to talk about is a policy about them, which simply says maybe the policy should look like the White House or other military installations where you have to wear a badge that identifies that you're press, or you can't just roam anywhere you want. It used to be, Mr. President, the press could go anywhere, pretty much anywhere in the Pentagon, the most classified area in the world. Or also that if they sign on to the credentialing, they're not going to try to get soldiers to break the law by giving them classified information. So it's common sense stuff, Mr. President. We're trying to make sure national security is respected, and we're proud of the policy.
David Smith is the Washington bureau chief of The Guardian, and they're among those protesting against these measures. David, explain to people listening how draconian they are, because in the UK, as you know, we have this system of D-notices to try to prevent the publication of stuff that is genuinely against the national interest. So what's the difference here?
Well, and indeed in America, there's supposedly the First Amendment that protects free speech. And so this is a pretty extraordinary step taken by the Pentagon. Historically, journalists have done journalism in these cases, and yes, they've received the official briefings and got the press statements, but they've also wandered the corridors of the Pentagon talking to military officers. And for example, a guy who's had a press pass at the Pentagon for 28 years for National Public Radio was talking about how during the Iraq War, we got the official line from George W. Bush, but he was hearing from military officers there that things were not going so well on the ground. And under these new restrictions, reporters would no longer be able to do that. Even information that's unclassified, it would have to be approved first. And so all these organizations have banded together to say, no way.
So this is the official line or and nothing else. What would happen to an organization who said, stuff it, we're going to do what we do and carry on reporting in the old way? What are the threats?
Well, I think if you sign up to this agreement with the Pentagon and then you carried on doing things the old way, then your pass would be very quickly revoked and you'd be kicked out of the building. And so this is preempting that, and this is journalists saying, no, we're not going to agree to it in the first place. With the one exception of the One American News Network, which is a far-right media entity that is very supportive of Donald Trump. Now, going forward, I think Pentagon reporters will continue to do their job. They're already asking sources to come forward. In some ways, what we know about journalists is they will probably redouble their efforts, and this will backfire on Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, himself a former Fox News host, and Donald Trump. What happens when we get the first big story exposing military secrets? We will have to see. Will Trump, who's pretty very litigious, try to pursue it through the courts or take some other petty vengeance against that particular media outlet? You would not bet against anything, given what we've seen so far.
And we mustn't assume in all of this that the administration is all powerful and the media outlets are not. If all the big American outlets and yourselves and others all band together and hold together, do you think this can be faced down?
Yeah, I think it's been impressive to see that unity, because it has not always happened so far particularly the second Trump era, and particularly at the White House. There's a ban on certain wire agencies in the presidential pool, and there's been a bit of a divide and rule strategy there. I think this policy is so extreme and so draconian. It has brought together the big guns like CNN, the Washington Post, the New York Times, with even conservative Fox News, owned by Rupert Murdoch, often supportive of Trump, that might make a difference. That might send a message. And if we're looking for a recent example, the late-night comedian Jimmy Kimmel was temporarily suspended by ABC News. There was such an outcry over that within a week he was back on air. So Trump is not quite as omnipotent as he seems.
Indeed, it's still a democracy, and there are still, as J.K. Galbraith would say, countervailing forces. David Smith, thank you very much indeed for that.